The truest expression of craft doesn't come from a recipe, a process, or even a perfect season for aging. No, it happens naturally, deep inside the barrel, untouched by human intervention. That's why at Blackwood Distilling Co., they don't rush perfection. Rather, they let time and nature take the lead. Their proprietary Blackwood toasting process isn't just about tradition. It's about unlocking layers of complexity that only emerge when you extend the maturation of a spirit. By carefully toasting their barrels, they coax out these rich, nuanced flavors like creme brulee, toasted pecans, warm baking spices, flavors that cannot be forced. Each sip reveals something new, something distinct, something that can only be achieved when craftsmanship meets patience. So raise a glass and taste what happens when we step back and let the barrel do the talking. Head over to blackwooddistillingco.com and discover the unhurried elegance of Blackwood Distilling.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome into the podcast. It's time for another special bonus episode. I love recording these bonus episodes that go live in between seasons, Brad, because I never quite know where to categorize them. You know, I save all of our audio files in a Google Drive, and I never know if I should put them in season 8 or season 9. It's kind of like when they made that movie Lion King 1.5. Like that's how I feel about our season right now.
8.5.
8.5, man.
Man, it's good to be with you.
Yeah, you too, man. Not only is it in between seasons, but it's also 8:46 in the morning when we're recording this.
Yeah, it is.
And you know what they say, there's no better time to talk about whiskey than the moment you wake up in the morning.
I mean, I've been up since like 5 a.m., Bob.
Oh, dude. So. Nah, not me, man. These kids of mine stay up too late. I got to get to sleep where I can.
Yeah, I believe it, man.
Well, we figured today, folks, while we're in between seasons, we would try something a little bit more fun than usual. We're known for being sticks in the mud, especially Brad. Ugh.
Yeah. Ugh. That guy.
Brad, I feel like a lot of times we get stuck in the rut of reviewing whiskeys, and while we try to keep the average consumer in mind, sometimes we're trying whiskeys that are just really out of the price range of the average consumer. And also a little bit too far down the rabbit hole, if I'm being honest. You know what I mean? Like people that are just walking into the liquor store looking for the first time to start building out their collection are not going to know all of the intricacies of a brand's vertical. You know what I mean? And so I think while we try to keep that in mind with our value score, sometimes we kind of just need to get back to basics. And that's what we're going to do today, folks. Brad and I are going to just have a 2-person draft going on. So it should go very quickly. But here's the rules of our game that we're playing today. We're drafting our perfect starter whiskey shelf. We have $300 hypothetical dollars to buy real world bottles with.
Yeah, we definitely don't have $300 personally.
No, let's be honest here. The Patreon needs to get bumped up a little bit before we can do this for real. So we have $300 hypothetical dollars to draft our perfect starter whiskey shelf. Now, we've been pricing out all the whiskeys that we might potentially draft. And Brad, I guess the first thing I should say is when we set this at $300, you know, it was completely arbitrary. And I thought that it was a good number to start with. Now I think that it's a good number, but because it's so challenging, like the price of whiskey in this economy has gone up.
Ridiculous.
Oh my gosh, dude.
I'll give the perfect example of this. One of our most beloved whiskeys on this podcast, from way back in the day when it still had 2 different year expressions, is the Glenmorangie Quinta Reuben. Now, when we started, they used to have the 12-year and the 14-year. Now they just have the 14-year, which I think was a good decision. It used to cost $52.99. A few years later, it jumped up to $58.99. Still reasonable, right? Under $60.
Absolutely.
I checked it today in order to do this exercise because I was like, oh, clear option for my bar. It is $74.
Wow. That's too much.
$74.
It's not getting drafted by me. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to get drafted by me either. It went from a lock-in pick at like $60 to like, oh, 74?
Yeah, because you could budget around like a $60 bottle of whiskey.
100%.
And I think that's kind of, I don't know, I don't want you to give away your whole strategy here, Brad, and I'm certainly not going to give away mine, but I think that we need to set a minimum number of bottles to target for our shelf. Like, you can't just say, okay, I'm going to go try to find a bottle of Eagle Rare 17 at cost, and it just magically show up at MSRP, and that's my one bottle. I think you need to get, I would say, at least 3, hopefully 4 bottles. And I would even say, like, maybe the target should be 5.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know, Bob. Are you going for 5 bottles today with our challenge?
Well, it kind of depends on how you draft, because one rule that we did set down that the people should know about is that once a bottle is drafted, it cannot be redrafted. Mm-hmm. So I've got a range of prices on things that I'd be willing to spend for. But if you scoop up all of my lower end stuff, then I'm going to be forced to get fewer bottles. So it really depends. I could have 9 bottles. Who knows?
Well, Bob, I just in my head started thinking through whiskeys that are in a price range that made sense. Mm-hmm. And the first 5 whiskeys I came up with added up exactly to $300.
Oh, man. Guess what, though? I'm drafting all 5 of those.
Are you now?
Yeah.
I kind of doubt it. There's 2 that I'm worried about.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what
Which
happens.
Which 2 would
Bob.
those be, Brad?
Who's to say? Canadian Mist.
Yeah, dude.
Is one.
Now, I guess the question is, can I start buying 50 ml bottles of stuff? Can I just throw in like
we're talking handles. We're talking here's the goal of the episode, guys. If you are starting off a little whiskey bar at your house and you wanted to spend $300, we think that this would be a good $300 to spend. At least we hope it ends up that way.
Absolutely. And I think that, we've also been kicking around this idea of maybe we should do an episode where we're just breaking down what is the best whiskey at each kind of price point that we talk about. Mm-hmm. That like sub $25, 25 to 40, 40 to 60, you know what I mean? And I think that would be a good way to go as well, because I don't expect that anybody who's just getting into whiskey is going to want to throw $300 behind it. But I think if you're serious about, hey, I want to buy more than 2 bottles and I'd like to have enough that I can entertain people when they come to my house, $300 is probably a good starter point. So I think we did set it correctly. A few more things I'll say before we dive in. I went back through every score we've ever done on our whiskeys on Film and Whiskey. And I think because of that, whiskeys that we tried on bonus episodes really suffered, because we don't typically give those a score. We kind of give our impressions, but not always a score. And so there's a lot of them that just slipped my mind. I'm sure that there are some that we've had on bonus episodes that would be in my top 10 we've ever had on the podcast, but it's 8:00 in the morning and I can't remember them right now. So it's pretty much just ones that we've done on our regular episodes that made my list, at least.
Yeah, I was going to say, and the other thing is, every single whiskey I have on my top 5 I hope to get, and I have about 10 alternates, every single one is easily available nationwide. Mm-hmm. Like, we're not picking these random, like, it's a barrel store pick from Lucky Joe's. Like, we're talking whiskey you can get pretty much nationwide at a cost similar to what you would pay in Ohio.
Now, I will say that the inspiration for this episode was the new bottle of Green River, which I believe is called Green River 1885. Is that correct?
Sure is. Oh, yeah.
We just received a bottle in the mail yesterday. We have not had a chance to try it yet. Now, I will say that it's the inspiration for this episode because we didn't want to drink it and then not include it in our starter shelves, just in case it doesn't, just in case it doesn't make like our top 5 ever. But the reason that it's the inspiration is Green River has just announced it as kind of their baseline. It's called Blended for the Bar. They want to put it behind every bar in America. It's like 80-something proof. It costs, I think, $28. Like, it's a really reasonable bourbon. And
do you want to know exactly what proof it is?
Yeah, sure.
It's 85 proof.
Oh, see, it all makes sense now.
See what they did there?
I get it now. But I just respect the hell out of that. And it really launched us into this conversation of what is still a good bargain in the world of whiskey. Mm-hmm. And that launched us down the path. Now, we will have a full review in our next bonus episode, hopefully. So stay tuned for that. Brad, I think we vamped long enough. We need to do a 2-person snake-style draft, which means we need to flip the coin of destiny to figure out who goes first and who goes second. Do you want to be heads or tails on this flip?
I'll be tails.
All right. Go ahead and flip that coin.
Bob, I will be picking first in the inaugural draft.
Oh, yeah.
I thought you'd be excited about that.
Oh, I sure am.
I am going to pick
hold on.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I just want to say, before we get started, you got to keep track of your own. You got to have your own calculator. I can't keep track of both of our 300s. I trust
Don't you worry, Bob.
I trust your calculations. Also, we should say we are not limiting ourselves to just bourbon or rye. Like, we're trying to get a variety here. Hopefully, it's not just a shelf of bourbon. Brad, as I look through my list, there's not a lot of rye on here, but you're also the rye guy. So maybe I tipped my hand a little bit.
Honestly, dude, I was trying to work through, my lists from the past few years, and I couldn't find a lot of ryes in the right price points for what I was looking at.
Agreed.
It was really weird.
All right. Anyway, with all that out of the way, Brad, you are picking first.
Bob, you know what I'm picking.
I don't.
There's only one choice at the top of this draft. I am getting my value pick out of the way, and I am taking Rebel 100.
Good for you, man.
Yeah. It's such an easy choice. Like, for me, rounding out my $300, I had to have something that would be good as a mixer and also still good by itself. And Rebel 100 is the obvious choice here.
Okay, that actually does help my strategy a little bit. So I get 2 picks here, and I think I am going to go bourbon heavy on the front end. And I think that I'm going to kind of blow my wad a little bit up front too here, Brad, and then go for the bargain stuff in a little bit.
Blow your wallet, Bob? Is that what you said?
No. Nope. Not what I said. My first pick in the category of bourbon is going to be $56 now in the state of Ohio, and it is Woodford Reserve Double Oak.
That was my second pick.
Yeah, man. I knew it was coming at some point. It is just perhaps the biggest crowd pleaser we've ever had on this podcast. And I knew I had to get it at some point or you were going to get it. Now, with my second pick, folks, I don't necessarily recommend that you immediately jump into the world of high-proof whiskey. But if we're talking crowd-pleasing, high-proof whiskeys, I'm going to stick in the world of bourbon. And my third overall pick here, my second pick, is going to be Wild Turkey Rare Breed.
Ooh, look at you.
So I'm trying to knock out the ones that I knew were on both of our radars, and I think those are my first 2.
Man, you knocked off my second overall choice and my first overall alternate.
Hey, there you go.
So you're taking it to me, Bob. I think for my second and third picks, I am going to take a $34 bottle of whiskey. It's going to be Cooper Craft's Barrel Reserve.
Yeah, I had that on my list too. It's still one of the most underutilized bottles that we've talked about. And I feel like people in the know, they get it. But it's for some reason, it hasn't hit the underground, everyone appreciates this level that it should be at.
No, it really hasn't. There is so much flavor going on, and I feel like it's hitting in that diminishing $30 to $40 range that it's, to use the pun, Bob, it's a rare breed anymore to find something in the $30 range that you really want to drink. And Cooper's Craft absolutely knocks it out of the park there. I think with my next pick, I'm going to go a little higher, Bob. We're going to spend a little more money.
Oh.
I am going to spend $85 in the state of Ohio on Barrel Seagrass.
Wow, dude. I didn't think that was actually going to get drafted here. $85 is a chunk of change, man.
I got $300 to spend. We got to get going.
Not anymore, you don't. I thought you were keeping tabs on this. It's not a constantly replenishing pot of 300, Brad.
Bob, I had spent $54 so far, and I like to enjoy the finer things in life.
Sure. So, tell me a little bit about Barrel Seagrass. Why are you picking it here?
Oh, Film and Whiskey Nation. If you have not heard already the praises of Barrel Seagrass, this is a absolutely perfect whiskey. It is a rye whiskey finished in a variety of cask types that has all of the decadence of a bourbon with all of the depth and flavor of a high proof rye. This thing absolutely knocked my socks off when I drank it. I've bought a bottle since. It was one of the best purchases I've ever made in the world of whiskey. I've drank the whole thing. And normally I try to hold on to bottles that I really, really like for way too long. And I can't like control myself with this stuff. Barrel Seagrass is the best whiskey consistently that I've ever had.
Mm. What a freaking endorsement, man.
Oh, dude. Yeah, Barrel needs to hire me.
I'm looking through my list, Brad, and I have 2 picks here now. It is a very bourbon-heavy list. Now, our podcast has also been a very bourbon-heavy podcast. I do want to get a little bit of variety in there, and so I think both of my picks are going to be outside the world of bourbon, and in fact, I think they're both going to be outside of the United States. I'm a little iffy on the Scotch pick here, but I think I need to take it now, or it might go a little bit later. So first, I'm going to take a whiskey that we had like in our first 10 episodes ever and has just remained our standard for blended Scotch. If you're just getting into the world of Scotch, I think you need to pick up a $35 bottle of Monkey Shoulder. That's going on my list. I could go with a single malt, but again, we're doing a starter shelf. And the cheapest single malt that I have on my list right here is like $65. So I'm going to avoid that. I'm going to take the Monkey Shoulder.
At the rate you're going, you're going to have like 19 bottles on your shelf.
This is the frugal shelf.
I thought we were going for like, here's 5 bottles. This is what you want. So my shelf's going to look a lot different than yours. I think you're going to have a lot of free picks at the end of this draft.
Well, in fact, I'm going to go even cheaper than the $35 Monkey Shoulder. And this is the one I really wanted to get. It's the only Irish whiskey that's going to make my list. It is $25 still in the state of Ohio. I'm talking about the Sexton single malt Irish whiskey. Perhaps still my favorite Irish whiskey we have ever had on this podcast.
Yeah, 100%, dude. It has so much flavor. And here's the wild thing. It used to be $35 in the state of Ohio, and now it is $25. It's an even better deal.
Maybe it's a victim of shrinkflation. Maybe the bottle's only like $3.75 mil now. Who knows?
Shrinkflation. Yeah, that was also on my alternate list. Sexton Single Malt's an incredible whiskey, Bob.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, man, I'm just getting my pick of the barrel. I'm going to spend the rest of my money, Bob.
Wow. This is the shortest episode ever. You really are here, huh?
Yeah, I'm spending the rest of my money. I am going to purchase next a incredible bourbon that we drank a few seasons back. I'm going to get the Old Forester Prohibition Series 1910.
1910, interesting. I have the 1920 on my list, and I thought that was always my favorite one. So I'm interested that you went with 1920, or 1910, I mean.
Yeah, I remember specifically thinking that the 1910 was way better than the 1920, and it comes in perfectly to replace the Woodford Double Oaked at $56.
There you go. So are you left with exactly $0 here?
After my next pick, yes.
Okay, wow. Man.
Yeah, so I have $105 left, and I am going to spend it on the pinnacle of Scotch whiskey. The price point at which you can get it, paired with the flavor, you literally cannot beat this bottle. Now, this is going to be your sophisticated drinker on your shelf. If you ever get into the world of single malt Scotches, then you cannot go wrong with Lagavulin 16.
Oh, yeah.
Bob, tell me that this is not one of the most delicious things you've ever drank in your life.
It's really good, man. And you have always, I'm certainly not opposed to a peated Scotch, but I have always been surprised with I don't know, what's the term? The vigor with which you jumped into the world of peated Scotch. I never expected you to latch onto it so quickly and so easily.
Dude, it's one of my best friends that I drink whiskey with constantly. We love all types of whiskey. He's a big Widow Jane fan and all sorts of bourbons and stuff. But we've kind of come to the point where we're like, man, if we're going to spend money on whiskey, it's going to be on single malt scotches. Like there's very few things. Like, honestly, my list of 5 here are all whiskeys I would buy and keep on my shelf, but mostly because they're not that expensive. If I'm going to spend more than $50 on a whiskey, it's going to be barrel seagrass or it's going to be scotch.
Oh, man. What do I want to do here? All right. I have a question for you. This is really going to dictate where I go from here.
Yeah. You have full reign of the whiskey.
I do. I'm completely taking over this episode now. So one of my picks was going to be Rebel Distillers Collection, which is like my favorite whiskey to drink day to day.
Yeah.
It is typically $44.99 in the state of Ohio. However, when I Googled it, or when I looked it up on Ohio's Liquor Bureau website, they are currently doing a sale on it for $31.49. So I don't know if I should factor in sale prices or if I have to go by retail price.
I mean, I would lean towards using retail because that's probably around what people will get it for nationwide. So that's what I would lean towards. But Bob, you
but you don't have any money, so why should I listen to you?
That's right.
Okay, here's where I'm at, Brad. I have 5 whiskeys left on my list of like, I really want to draft these. They added up to $187. I only have $134 left. So I've got to eliminate something. And then when you make me draft at retail price, it bumps up to like $200. So I'm going to take out Rebel Distillers Collection, unfortunately.
Okay. Wow.
I'm also going to take out Weller Antique.
Yeah, that was on my alternate list.
It's a good whiskey, but it's just, it's creeped up in price, and you're not going to get it at retail in most places anyway. So it would be unfair for me to draft it. And that leaves me with a list of 3 whiskeys. Now I have $134 left. These 3 whiskeys come in at $132.
Okay.
One of them is a personal favorite of mine. It is from the Willett Distillery. It's called Johnny Drum. It's one that we had last year on the podcast. It's like a slightly lower proof version of Noah's Mill, which I absolutely love. Johnny Drum, it's like if you want a good picture of what the Willett funk is like, you could do a heck of a lot worse than Johnny Drum at $44. Secondly, I'm going to pick a whiskey that I really thought was going to go earlier in this draft to you because it's from the company that we've been talking about all day that inspired this. It's the Green River Full Proof.
Yeah, dude.
Like, I don't know if there's a whiskey that's come out in the last year that I've talked about more. I don't know. Like, it's so affordable. It's such an incredible flavor. And the fact that they're balancing those two things and they're riding the wave of the hype without hiking the price is like, I just respect what they're doing at Green River so much.
Yeah, 100%. They are making incredible whiskey. The Green River Full Proof is coming in at $60, and it is so much value at that price point for how much flavor you are getting.
All right, my last pick, I was going to go with like my Bob Book frugal pick, which is when I go to Kentucky, I always get a handle of a whiskey called T.W. Samuels. It is made by the Heaven Hill Company.
I knew you were going to get that, or like J.W. Dant or something.
They were on my list, man. Dant's $15. And to get a handle of T.W. Samuels for $24 it's the best value in bourbon. It's like, it's my mixer that I use for everything because it's 100 proof. It makes a heck of a cocktail. I'm not going to draft it here because you can't get it nationwide. I am going to draft a whiskey that we immediately loved. I gave it to a buddy because I wanted him to experience this. And then I immediately regretted giving him that bottle because I've never been able to get another one. And that is the Jack Daniel's Triple Mash that came out about 2 years ago. They've raised the price slightly on this. I think it started at $29.99. It's up to $38. So it is, as far as Jack Daniel's stuff goes, it's on the higher end. But I still think it's the best Jack Daniel's product we've ever had when you're accounting for value.
Yeah, I remember doing that. And what was the other Jack Daniel's that came out at the same time?
Yeah, it was the Jack Daniel's Bonded. And I gave my buddy the Triple Mash because I had already hyped it up to him and I didn't want to give him the Bonded, which I had said I didn't like as much.
Yeah.
Because then you make him feel like, oh, he's just giving me the stuff he doesn't want.
Yes.
But man, I don't like the bonded nearly as much, and I missed that triple mash.
Yeah, you should have held on to it, man. That was a great bottle. I remember both of those being really good, but you're right. The triple mash just had a depth to it that was incredible.
All right, man. I think we're both out of money. I have $2 left. Now, again, we drafted without the presupposition of tax here. So in this world that we drafted in, there is no tax. If you need to factor that in, just pretend like you found a $20 bill in your wallet after your $300 was gone. It was just a bonus surprise tax bill.
A bonus episode surprise. Pay for your taxes.
All right, Brad, let's go through our lists here. Yours is much shorter than mine. Go ahead and run down what you drafted and at how much each one cost you.
Yeah, starting from the top and going down, I have a $105 bottle of Lagavulin 16, an $85 bottle of Barrel Seagrass, a $56 bottle of Old Forester Prohibition Series 1910, and two more, a $34 bottle of Cooper's Craft Barrel Reserve, and rounding it out is the Film and Whiskey peak of value, the $20 Rebel 100.
That's a really good list, man. I'm shocked that you were able to get two like high price point whiskeys in that $300. Because you said 105 and like 80 something or whatever it was. And I was like,
85.
Man, like you really only had $100 to work with after those two. Yep. And you managed to get three pretty good bottles after that.
Yeah, I was going to say the Old Forester 1910 is still a $56 bottle of whiskey. Yeah. So that, I think hopefully what it highlights for you is that you can have your cake and eat it too.
100%. All right, I was able to draft 7 bottles of whiskey with my $300 because I am a cheapskate. And so starting at the top for me, my most expensive bottle was only $56. That was Wild Turkey Rare Breed. I had 2 bottles that were drafted at $50 on the dot. One of them is Green River Full Proof. The other is Woodford Reserved Double Oaked. Oh, you know what? I had those backwards. Double Oaked is 56. Yeah. Rare Breed is 50.
There you go.
Moving down in my list, I had Johnny Drum at $44, Jack Daniel's Triple Mash at $38, and then to round things out, I had a bottle of Scotch in Monkey Shoulder at $35, and the Sexton Single Malt Irish Whiskey at $25. So there you go.
Dude, and if you wanted to spend $600, you could spend a lot worse money than this lineup of 12 whiskeys.
I mean, we would be averaging $50 a bottle for those 12 whiskeys.
Yeah, 100%. And if you really wanted to go all out and like stock your whiskey shelf, tell me that this 12 wouldn't be absolutely perfect.
I think the only thing that's missing is rye. Like we really don't have any ryes represented here at all.
Yeah. I mean, and there's good options there, like Templeton rye would be a good, honestly, the Wild Turkey Rare Breed rye, I have not drank, but I've heard incredible things about. There's definitely options out there. They just didn't quite hit our list today.
No, they did not. So folks, we want to know, what would your shelf look like? But also, and even more importantly, who wins this battle today? Whose shelf looks better?
Obviously, I win that battle. I'm going to give another value pick that I think people might miss out on for high proof things. Maker's Mark Cask Strength at $45.
That was such a good whiskey.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that one. Yeah.
That was on my list. I was very drawn to the spending exactly $300. But that was probably my top alternate that I didn't pick.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right, guys, you can find us on all of our social media accounts to let us know just how much I won by. At Film Whiskey on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
Or you can jump into the conversation on Discord. If you want to talk movies, whiskey, and pretty much anything else going on in the world, you can find a link to our Discord at the end of every single one of our show notes.
We want to give a special thanks again to our presenting sponsor, Blackwood Distilling. Zach, don't hate us for this one. We did not include Blackwood today because it's not available nationwide yet. But as you've heard in all of our ads, you can find a bottle of Blackwood by going to their website, blackwooddistillingco.com. That's blackwooddistillingco.com. We'll be back next week with another bonus episode to tide you over until season 9. But until then, I'm Bob Book.
I'm Brad G.
And we'll see you next time.
Hey there, whiskey lovers. You ever wonder what happens when you mix Kentucky Derby winners, legendary bourbon masterminds, and a dash of bold ambition? You get Blackwood Distilling Co., a premium brand born from the wild 65-1 odds victory of Country House in the 2019 Derby. They have crafted luxury toasted bourbon and America's first triple-barreled toasted rye that'll knock your socks off in the most delicious way possible. Picture this: 7 to 9-year-old Kentucky bourbon. Think deep, creamy vibes, soft barrel spices, and that smooth as velvet warmth, kissed by a hint of vanilla from Kentucky's golden era. And that's just the bourbon. If rye's more your thing, like it is for me, how about a 5 to 7-year-old Indiana rye triple-barreled in toasted barrels that blend spice, dark fruits, mint, and a dash of white pepper? It's basically a liquid holiday wrapped in oak and fire. Batches are continuously rolling out in states all across the union, so if you want in on luxury, head to blackwooddistillingco.com to get yourself some Blackwood toasted bourbon and toasted rye. Cheers to the good stuff.